Hello everybody, and thanks for being here. I know it's a little bit late, but in some minutes we're gonna have the after show party, so let's wait some more minutes and I will try to keep it a little bit simple because I know we are a little bit tired from all the day. So we are here today to talk about Varnish, and my name is Fabrizio. I come from Italy. I actually live now in Spain, in the Canary Islands. And that's why I was willing to have this speech today in Spanish, and that's why I actually brought the slides in Spanish. But then I figured that we have people from all over the world, so I think maybe it's more useful. Also, my Spanish it's far from being perfect. So anyway, I'm a PHP developer since the last century. I think I am one of the oldest PHP developers here, and that kind of makes me worried. Anyway, I am a full-time Magento developer since 2011. I got some certification, and here you can find also my Twitter handle if you want to if you want to ask me some questions or whatever, if you want to write me. So let's dive into the topic. What is Varnish? I want to start just like trying to get your attention. So Varnish, we can think about it like 500% performance boost. I know this is just an average number, which doesn't mean that it's gonna be 500% faster your store. It depends on some pages, it depends on some conditions. We're trying to find what are the conditions and what we're gonna achieve later in the speech. And I know probably the reaction to this is I can't believe this. Also, if you don't know what this little GIF it's taken, the TV series is called IT Crowd, and you should definitely check it. So if you don't believe to just the 500% performance boost number, here you can find, and also these slides are already online. I will tweet the link later. But here you can find a test, which I didn't do it, I just took it. And it shows you a comparison between a classical, let's say classical Apache and PHP versus Varnish plus Apache and PHP comparison. So you can see, you just notice the difference between the bars. So we actually have a lot of difference, so we are interested in knowing how to have this kind of performance boost. This is why we want, everybody probably want this kind of performance boost, but the thing is, when we are going to have a new tool in our infrastructure, we have to know a little bit more of the details of what the tool is and what it does, etc., etc. So let's dive a little bit into the details of what is Varnish. This blue rabbit, it's just its symbol. But anyway, if we go to the Varnish official website, we're gonna find out Varnish is classified as a web application accelerator, which it means that Varnish does this thing via being a reverse HTTP proxy. I'm sorry, I'm reading slides in Spanish and having to translate into English, and being Italian, it's a little bit of a language switch thing going on in my mind. So at the end of the day, Varnish is a cache server, and it also does something that it's really interesting for me. It also does load balancing. So what it gives to us is that it gives a huge performance boost, as we saw before, but also it gives us the possibility to have lower load on the CPUs of our web servers, and also a lower, let's say, network traffic, and we're gonna find out what I mean by network traffic later. And also it can be a full RAM solution. So for example, now RAM, it's very cheap, so you can buy a server with a lot of RAM and put all your cache into this RAM, and obviously it's gonna be served very, very, very fast. So, but then, what is Varnish when we're going to implement it in a Magento project? So Varnish is gonna be our full page cache storage. So it's going to take all the pre-rendered HTML, it's going to store inside its memory, and it's going to serve it to the browsers, to our visitors, our customers. And also it can do something very interesting, which is caching not only the HTML of our website, but also JavaScript and CSS. And also, if we want, we can configure it, obviously. It can cache images. So let's make a little bit of a buy-in list. To implement Varnish in our project, we're going to need Varnish, obviously, the Varnish software. We're going to need a Magento module that's going to make Magento talk to Varnish. Maybe we're going to need a new server, hardware, virtual server, whatever. And then, obviously, we have to configure every part of this new ecosystem to work all together. So let's take, for example, a sample infrastructure. It's very simple. Usually, when you need to have Varnish, you probably have more than one application server. The servers that actually run PHP on it. And so what I like to do with the project, it's simple enough. It's to put Varnish on top of on front of the infrastructure. So it's going to answer all the requests coming from the internet. And then if it has the cache, if it has the resource that it's been asked, it's going to serve it back directly. Otherwise, it's going to forward the request to the application servers behind. So at the end of the day, it seems simple enough to have Varnish in our infrastructure, but obviously, this is probably the most overused meme of this event. One does not simply install Varnish. And I made a list of at least 4 important points that I want to bring out tonight, and that it's important that everybody who wants to have Varnish inside their project, that we have to be focused on, and we have to know them. So first of all, configuration. The thing is, the configuration file for Varnish, it looks like this. So it's actually a really long file, and it's written in a kind of language which seems C, and it's called VCL. It stands for Varnish Configuration Language. And the fact that they had to create a new name for it, it probably makes you think that it's going to be somehow complex, and actually it is. And the thing is, if you're going to use this software which has this kind of configuration, then probably you have to know what it's written there. Otherwise, I mean, if something happens, what are you going to do? The thing is also another, I don't know if you can see it very well. This is the VCL flow. So this is how Varnish manage every request. So it's going to trigger all these functions there, which actually are also functions inside the VCL file I was showing you before. So you see it's a little bit tricky configuration. So you have to think about you're going to add this kind of software in your infrastructure that has this kind of complexity in it. Also, another point we had in the list before, it's tracking, visitors tracking. So the thing is, if we think about it, if we think about how every request is handled, so if the page is not in cache, what happens is the request comes through internet, it reaches our Varnish server, and Varnish say, hey, I don't have this resource in my cache, so I have to forward the request to our application servers. And then obviously the web servers are gonna compose all the HTML file, do everything they need to do, and send the HTML back to Varnish, that it's going to store the HTML and then forward it to the browser. But then, if we think about another thing, if the page is in cache, the thing is that the request is Varnish, and then Varnish directly sends the HTML back to the browser, and then we are gonna spare, it's here that we're gonna spare a lot of network traffic inside the servers, because we're not gonna call anything from the storage, from the database, from the cache servers, obviously from the application server. But then what happens is that the web application, the web servers will never know that the user visited a page. So the thing is how you're gonna do server-side visitor tracking. The question is, okay, but nowadays, who is making server-side visitors tracking? For example, now we have Google Analytics, which is only JavaScript, it's pure JavaScript, and a lot of visitor tracking services are made purely in JavaScript. But the thing is, who is making it server-side? Magento, for example, because we have a few features that are based on the fact that the web servers know of a visit to a page made by some users. So for example, report in the backend, you can have reports for most visited products, and this is not going to work if the Apache servers do not know that the page has been visited. Or we can have a block on our front end, on our website, which shows most recently viewed products. Or we can have, and this is for Magento Enterprise, we can have customer segmentation, so we can decide to do some kind of things based on the fact that the users visited a page, visited a product or a category or whatever. So this is not working. Next point, dynamic blocks. What are dynamic blocks? If we take a look at this page, for example, which should be quite familiar, it's a category page for, let's say, all the Magento website in the world. The thing is, obviously we want this page to be in cache, otherwise what's the point? The thing is, if we take a look at what is pointed by the red arrow, we can see we have a part of the page which shows how many products I have inside my shopping cart. The thing is, that part of the page cannot be in cache, because otherwise every person visiting our store, it's gonna see that he has one product in his cart, which is obviously, it's not true. Maybe it can be. We hope that it's gonna be more than one product, but then it cannot be for every user. The thing is, obviously, Varnish is gonna handle this kind of feature, but the thing is, these dynamic blocks are also a little bit complex. We have two different types of the dynamic blocks. We have what is called edge-side includes. I know this is a little bit technical. I will try to make it simple, just showing the biggest difference between each other. We have edge-side includes and then Ajax. The main difference is that the edge-side includes are not visible to the client, to the browser of the user, because everything is made by Varnish before sending the HTML back to the user. And the Ajax one, obviously it's not, because it's made via a JavaScript call. And so the page is being served to the browser, and then after it, we have the Ajax call that it's going to ask, okay, I need only these blocks. Can you please render me only these blocks? And then, again, with JavaScript, they are gonna, our software is gonna replace the blocks and put up the updated contents. Also, an example of dynamic block, it's this one, for example, flash messages. So when we are trying, for example, if we are on a product page, we try to add it to our cart, and it says, oh, because maybe we are trying to add 10 of these products to the cart, and the system says, hey, look, I don't have in my stock 10 of this kind of product. So we have this flash message. I want to show you today a solution that I had to come up with to solve this problem. So I was needed to, I needed to do some visitor tracking for a customer of mine which was having Varnish implemented. So I thought, well, actually I can overwrite the flash messages system, because flash messages are in every page of our Magento website. So I can overwrite the flash messages and say, okay, I will serve the flash messages back, but then I will start to track the visitor and do server-side call to whatever I need to implement this feature back. And actually, this module, it's open source. You can find it if you may need to use Varnish, and you may need to have recently viewed products. It's called Magento Turpentine recently viewed. It's turpentine because it's actually based on turpentine. Turpentine, I don't remember if I said it before, it's the Magento module that talks to Varnish. We have a variety of Magento modules doing the same thing, but I prefer to use turpentine because it's kind of the de facto standard. It's open source. It's made by Nexus, that it's almost a guarantee of quality. So, I mean, I've always used turpentine, so I've wrote this module for turpentine. And if you want it, you can just download it and use it. The last point, it's SSL. So SSL, it's obviously it's a very important thing for all our stores, and nowadays everybody gives it for granted. But the thing is, Varnish means no SSL. If we take a look at the screenshot I took here, it's the official Varnish website, and it's written, no, Varnish still won't add SSL TLS support. And this documentation is based on the Varnish 4.1 development. So the thing is, for a lot of time, we worked with Varnish 3. Then we had Varnish 4, which was a big step forward. And then we have nowadays Varnish 4.1. The thing is, this is talking about something that it's happening now. So it's not like, okay, 10 years ago, we didn't have support for SSL. This is now, and this is kind of for the future. I don't know how long, but anyway, they say they don't have any plan for supporting Varnish. And here in the link, you can take a look at all the thing, because it's a little bit, they're explaining why. The thing is, everybody needs SSL. So what you have to do is to add another server to your infrastructure. It's not an hardware server. It's not a new virtual machine or whatever. It's just a software. It can be, we have a variety of solutions based on Pound, Nginx, Apache, HA proxy. The only thing that this software is going to do is just encapsulating the SSL requests. So it's going to answer to the port 443 and then just forward the request to the Varnish server. And this is pretty much it. So here you can find an example of, it's a simple solution. This sample, it's just the configuration of Apache VirtualHost for doing this kind of stuff. It's a simple solution, but the thing is it's important to know that you're gonna need this kind of thing. So that's pretty much it. The conclusion is Magento plus the Magento module you're gonna choose, plus Varnish. Varnish, it's gonna give you like a Ferrari. The thing is, every Ferrari car, like in Formula 1, it's really powerful, but it's also really complex to drive. So the thing is that you have to practice, you have to know the tool you're gonna use, and obviously you have to be careful with it. And this is what I was willing to pass you as an information for this talk. And so thank you very much, and I think we can go to the after show party now.